This is Fran, your fairy god planner from Jamaica Wedding Concierge. And today we have Mr. Andre Rattigan from Andre Rattigan Photos and
Commercial concepts.
Commercial Concepts. This is a little weird because, of course, we've only seen each other on the job site, and he's always trying to get me when I'm in the middle of execution. But today, it is going to be a conversation because, of course, he has been, and I said this lightly, he has been unfortunate enough to work for me as my client's photographer and also on the back end for me as my content creator.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mr. Rattigan.
Greetings.
Kindly introduce yourself and tell us about your business.
All right. I'm Andre Rattigan. I am, should I say, wedding photographer, content creator,
Entrepreneur. Because we're sitting in your studio, by the way.
Yeah.
See this setup? You see this setup?
Yeah.
Yeah. His studio.
You know, husband, dad, good friend, mentor, all of those stuff. I would say I wouldn't necessarily label myself as just a wedding photographer because I do video as well and I do a lot of commercial work.
Yes.
So I would probably just say an all-rounder, really.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is true because our first encounter was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You were the client's photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to start right there because what was that first encounter like? Because my timeline is no joke.
Yeah, you are a stickler for time, and as wedding photographers, during the course of the day, anything really can happen. Clients can be lagging, anything can happen. A bride can be a little stressed out. The bridezillas, as we're familiar with. But I think that first encounter was more of a, "Hi, I am Fran, and listen." My timelines are important, so
word for word,
adhere to my timelines, and we will be friends.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Word for word.
Many years ago, and here we are today, right?
Here we are. So, what was that first experience like? Because, of course, I introduced myself exactly like that, and I said what I said with my entire chest. How did you receive that, first of all?
For me,
and be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For me, I work with a lot of women, especially in the corporate space, and so I have learned to be very, very comfortable when a female approaches me, strong, so to speak, to be able to absorb and defer the energy and make sure that I come back off as warm and welcoming. And I think I believe it went well. What do you think?
It went well. It went well because, you respected the timeline, and that is the most important thing for me because, again, vendors usually only come in on the day off. You have the opportunity to meet the client maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks before.
Right.
But from the get-go, it's me and the client. They've expressed to me explicitly what it is that they want. My timeline tells you exactly what they want.
Right.
So for me, a lot of vendors, they do not respect the timeline. So you respected the timeline, and that for me was very important because if we are off on the timeline, it means I have to make the executive decision as to what I need to cut, what I need to adjust, and then in my mind, my client does not get their money's worth.
Right.
So thank you for respecting my timeline.
Absolutely.
So, of course, you came, I introduced myself, and you got to work. Walk me through what that day was like for you.
First of all, I've been doing weddings for quite some time now, a good amount of years. I can't say exactly how many years. But one of the first experiences that I had with you outside of the introduction is that I was handed a walkie-talkie in order for us to be able to communicate throughout the day.
Yes.
Because I think we were on... it was a property that we were on.
It was a hotel.
It was a hotel property, and the hotels can sometimes be very big.
It was a big property.
Right, and the bride will be here and the groom will be at the other end. So you know, that was a first for me, and it was very well received for me and my team to be able to communicate with you throughout the day. And as the day went along and progressed, I was hearing what is happening because all of your vendors had communication devices. That for me was impressive, hands down. Outside of that, it was just the complete management. I saw you managing the customer's expectations and managing how it is that it was an emotional day for everybody, and you were just managing it all. Are you a secret psychologist?
You know, a couple of vendors have called me the bride whisperer. A bride said I'm the fairy god planner. I had another one that said that I am their everything, and if you don't have a Fran in your life, you need to get one.
Yeah, man, absolutely, because you were just managing and absorbing all of this energy, whether it be positive or negative, and you were just getting it done with a smile. And outside of dealing with the customers, you were also managing the vendors. And most importantly, that timeline, which was very, very important, because I can say this to anybody out there: if it is that the timeline goes off, the day goes off, and then it can just go to. So I can definitely applaud you, and I've done quite a bit of weddings with you,
both on the front line and behind the scenes.
Correct. So I have seen where it is that you have pretty much mastered managing that.
Because we had one wedding too where it was raining during the first look. Yes, the first look.
Yeah.
Yes, and there were umbrellas and stuff like that, and I had to be there making sure that the bride is calm and patting her down, making sure that her makeup.
While you out to get wet, manage everything. So, kudos to you.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But it also speaks to your flexibility and your experience, because if you did not have that experience, because again, I can only manage so much, but because you have the experience right away, you knew what to do.
Right, and I think that experience comes with a lot of time, and I can also say, even for young photographers out there, I'm going to say and recommend mentorship.
Yep.
And connecting with experienced photographers. There are a few experienced photographers out there that may not necessarily want to be able to share and guide or even mentor, but there are a few out there that be willing to do that. And you know, in my career, I got mentorship from a few photographers, people that I still reach out to today. So, you know, that is very, very important. Mentorship creates that ability or that opportunity for experience.
Right. And mentorship is key, but I feel like one key thing here is to first deciding or figuring out what your photography style is, right? Because you would not want to go to a mentor who does a certain photography style, but that is not what you are focusing on or is like your style. So first of all, how would you describe your photography style?
I would say my style of photography is more from the journalistic side.
So you tell the story as it progresses.
As it progresses, every now and again I may have to jump in and you know, tweak a few things here, you know, move a glass of wine here, you know, just a few changes, but try to just capture the moment, because for me personally, I think the best moments are captured without any instructions or guidance.
I absolutely agree. So circling back, you ideally want to make sure that you are getting mentorship from a photographer that does the journalistic, right? Who also is experienced, of course, but does the same journalistic style that you do.
No,
or
not
you
necessarily.
don't. Okay, explain.
All right. Everybody has their own style. And there are some people that will adapt from a mentor.
True.
Or they will basically evolve or make modifications to the mentor's style and make it their own. But there's different styles of photography. There's journalistic, there's documentary. It all depends on what it is that you want to do. You have a lot of people that want to do very weddings, make it look very high fashion. Everything has to be posed. They don't really naturally capture it as the day progresses. They keep jumping in. That's not my style, because I want that natural flow when mommy comes in for the first time. She sees her daughter.
And the angles.
And the tears. I want to be very quiet. I'm not there. I just want to get that connection between you and mommy. If it is that I keep jumping in, I'm going to break that flow. That's just my opinion.
And I absolutely agree with you, because it literally tells in the photos.
Correct.
And as you would have heard in the conversation with Chanel and Kyle, like early out, I always tell them the 4 most important vendors that you secure right away as soon as you've gotten your venue would be your photographer, a videographer, hair and makeup, because the photos are forever.
Correct.
And if you do not have a good photographer, then you would have spent all of that money in vain.
Correct.
So this now leads me to the next question is, why should they get a professional photographer and not Uncle Bobby or one of their friends who recently took up photography as a hobby?
All right. First of all, I'm not bashing anybody that are hobbyists.
Say it with your chest.
Right,
Say it
that
with your
are
chest.
hobbyists. But you have to remember or recognize that you are taking on a responsibility for capturing these unforgettable moments for these people,
which you only get to do
only
for
once.
one day.
Only once. Actually, let me just step back a little bit. My very, very first wedding was introduced to me by a friend, and I said, I'd love to come and do the wedding, but I won't do it unless it is that you pay someone else to do it. I will come and capture it as a hobbyist, so to speak. Did the wedding. Long story short, my hobbyist pictures came out better than the paid photographer.
You liar.
But I think it was more of a training ground for me. So all of that to say is that there are hobbyists that are good. And they understand what it takes.
And what's at stake as well.
And what is at stake. So for all of those hobbyists out there, if it is before you go on to, say, do a wedding for, whether it be a friend, family member, whoever, practice. Practice, right? So really and truly, to answer your question, for those couples getting married, I definitely recommend having a professional photographer do the photos for you, because it should only be happening once.
And the key moments have to be captured.
Correct. Our Uncle Bobby may not necessarily have the experience, as we said earlier, if it is that the day starts to rain. How is he going to be able to manage your emotions and adjust to be able to give you what you need on that day? Because a lot of emotions are flying, and at the end of the day, a lot of times brides and even the grooms, they don't get to see what their wedding really looked like.
Exactly. Thank you very much, because in all of my planning meetings, I emphasize you guys are working.
Yeah.
You are working. It's the longest, shortest day of your life. I tell them that word for word. And they really and truly won't see it all until they start to get the photos and the videos from their guests who are there, and then when they get their full album from the photography and, of course, the video. Yeah. So you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, so that is key and very, very important. So if it is that you are open to risking your memories, go ahead.
And the money. Because weddings are expensive.
Exactly. So you need to make sure that whether it be an Uncle Bobby or a professional photographer, all of your details especially are captured and captured properly.
And now that kind of leads me to the next question, because of course content creation is now a thing.
Yeah.
Because of course you've been doing an awesome job, by the way, of capturing everything that I ask you for. You just see some random messages at random hours of the night.
Yeah, it is what we do.
Yes, some random messages. Hey, this is what I want. Make sure that this is this, and make
Yeah.
sure that that is that. So, of course, as a professional wedding photographer, a lot of my couples, especially because
Right.
I have influencers, I have doctors, and
Yeah.
all of those clients. A lot of them are getting into content creation.
Right.
So, first of all, do you recommend having a content creator work with their photographer and videographer on wedding day?
Um, that's a double-edged sword.
It is, because the other question that I was going to ask, the follow-up question is, would it interfere in the main photographer and videographer's job? Because remember, their job is to legit capture everything.
Right.
So, but the client wants what the client wants.
Correct.
So we as professionals, we are here to guide them. So do you recommend it? And if you recommend it, would it interfere, especially if they're not an experienced content creator?
All right. So let me start off by saying, if I would recommend it, I would say yes, because at the end of the day, it's what the client wants, right? That's the first thing. But for anybody who is the content creator, what I will then say is, as I said earlier, practice. Practice. If it is that you're a content creator for a wedding, that you're going into the wedding, if by any chance, I know with a lot of experience with you, I get a document outlining who the photographer is, contact information, I get all of that details. So if it is that I am going to be creating content for you, and it's the first time I'm working with photographer A, I'm going to reach out to photographer A and say, hey, I'm Andre Rattigan. I'll be doing some content for Francine and the bride. I just want to introduce myself and want to know how it is that you work, so I can work around you
Exactly.
and allow you to deliver the best work that you can provide, and for me to be able to also do the same for my clients. Right? So it's a yes, and then there's the side of where there's a no, because there have been times where I am a lead photographer and the content creator is walking past a shot that I cannot
And
miss.
kill the shot.
And kill the shot. But then now, which is why it is also so important as a professional photographer for you to have a second shooter that has the skills and capability to be able to make sure that if you're missing a shot, they are not missing a shot.
And I'm happy, like, you're legit just going straight into my questions. Because the next thing now is, of course, you will send the rates to the client.
Right.
And sometimes for budgets, they will say, oh, I just want one shooter. And they don't understand how important it is to have a second shooter. So please explain to both myself, I already know this, but for all of the prospective clients who are going to be getting married soon, and they're going to be saying, oh, but the second shooter is so much more. Like, why do I need a second shooter?
All right. I'm looking into the camera and saying this. For me, for my company, my services, my team, hands down, I do not do any weddings without a second shooter.
And that is why your prices are what it is.
They are. All right. And the reason for that is this. We're using a piece of equipment, technology, and at any given time, the possibility is that it can fail, right? When I do weddings, I'm shooting with 2 cameras, and I'm also using an assistant that is shooting 2 cameras, because at no point...
That's what, 4 angles.
That's 4 cameras in total between 2 persons. And then we have a third person that we really don't charge for. In some cases, we have that person doing equipment, and that person will also potentially have a camera, right? So for us, we don't want to miss a shot. That's one. And there have been, in one instance at a wedding, where a memory card failed. In another instance, I was shooting for a photographer that a memory card went missing.
As in, like, when you guys were
It was
setting
just
up?
unaccountable for after the wedding.
Wow.
So we were able to recover the photos from the second shooter's camera. So it is imperative that if it is that you are moving to the next level as a photographer, as a professional photographer, especially doing weddings, as you said before, it only happens once. So a second shooter is always very, very important, right? Outside that budget, think about your memories, and as Francine said, you spend a whole heap of money on doing all of this. It needs to be documented properly.
Correct. And then that kind of leads me now into the next question of what is the sweet spot for the number of hours that you ideally need to capture all of the client's memory? Because, of course, again, sometimes for budgeting,
Right.
I will have a client say to me, why do I need to have a photographer and a videographer for 8 hours?
Right.
And I'm always like, child, 8 hours is minimum.
Correct. Correct.
So what's your sweet spot?
I think really that sweet spot is really and truly that 8 hours, because no matter how organized and we try, there is always some element that causes delay.
No matter how you plan, and take it from me,
Right.
because we're planning with Fran, no matter how you try, there's always going to be something.
Some element is either best man running late. Oh, we can't find the ring. Rain falling. If it is that you say, okay, I just want a
Makeup
photographer.
artist show up late.
Makeup artist show up late.
Or the girls were taking photos before and they're not paying attention. There's nobody in the makeup chair, so they are late with the getting ready.
Correct. So if it is that you say, oh, I just need a photographer for 5 hours, 5 hours disappear in the matter of minutes.
That is true. Right?
And then again, I'm gonna emphasize this. You want to capture all of those details, and then 5 hours blows off, and then you're at the end of your wedding. There's the dancing, there is the laughter, the moments, the enjoyment. If it is that you only book for 5 hours, you're not going to be able to capture all of that.
Because 5 hours is 5 hours.
5 hours is 5 hours. So realistically, anywhere from 8 hours up to make sure that you have all bases covered. Right?
So, question now, Andre. So, 8 hours is a sweet spot, right? How many hours do you actually need to get like some really great getting ready photos? Because remember, there are different elements to the getting ready. There is, of course, you have to get that shot with the bride in the chair, getting makeup and hair. And then, of course, the robe or the PJ shots.
Right.
And then, of course, the actual getting into the dress.
Right. So, all of that can vary depending on one, the client, personality, and all other factors throughout the day. Rain, family, the emotional breakdowns, all of those things. So for me, when we walk into the room, and especially if it is that we're meeting a bride for the first time, we start to analyze and understand personality, and especially the energy in the room on that day. So if there is any chance for us to stage some of the stuff outside of the journalistic style of photography that we do, we're going to try to manage the time, especially with your guidance about, especially being such a stickler for time. We try to say, okay, if the girls are just hanging out, not doing anything, hey girls, let's get those rope shots done. Let's get some creative stuff done. You know, talking to your girls, talking to your mom. Makeup artist, can you come in? Let me get some of this. And sometimes do a little directing, but allow the day to flow as normal as possible. But to really answer your question, to make sure that we get, especially during the getting ready stage, I would say I would need a focused hour to make sure I get rings, dress.
And we make it easy for you at JWC
Yes,
because you always
certainly
come
do,
and they're all
because
flat laid and ready for you.
ready for us. I definitely can agree with that.
So 1 hour. And then does that 1 hour encompass from the details to the getting into the dress, or
That can vary depending, as I said, on what is happening at the time.
so 1.5 is
Hour and a
your
half.
sweet
If
spot?
if it is that the bride is on schedule, all of that can be done within an hour and a half.
Okay. And this also, again, brings us back to the second shooter because...
Right. The second shooter would be with the groom.
Thank you.
Right? So I wouldn't be having to, especially
Go back
on
and
large
forth.
properties.
The back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question now, Andre, is, of course, every woman has, their little flaw here and there and something that they're super self-conscious about.
Yeah.
What is your recommendation to the brides who feel like their left side is their better side or the right side isn't their good side, or their tummy, like me trying to hide my tummy with this iPad? What is your recommendation to them how they can prep at home before coming to Jamaica for their wedding?
All right. I would definitely recommend looking at yourself in the mirror, spending some time finding your angles. What do you find most flattering? And you can also get your hubby, your groom, to be involved in, how do you think I look this way? Do you think this is my best side? And in the consultation with your photographer, speak about that. Let him be aware, conscious of it, that you are, hey, I have a birthmark on the left side of my face. I don't want to actually capture that too much. Communicate that with him. And also talk to the makeup artist and keep in contact with your wedding planner for her to make sure that she is also keeping that at the forefront of your photographer or videographer's mind. So it is at the end of the day, you get the absolute best pictures on that right side that you think is your most flattering side.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. So, of course, my clients will confirm this, both the past ones and the current ones, that I go back and forth with them on very few things. Right. And the first look versus the first touch is one. Because, of course, again, anything can happen on wedding day.
Correct.
And there is so much that needs to happen. But separate and apart from that, they don't even really have any alone time in the day, right, besides that first look or that first touch. A lot of clients want to maintain the traditional element of not seeing them until they get to the altar.
Correct.
But they don't understand how important the first look is. So please explain what a first look and a first touch is, and let us know why you highly recommend the first look.
All right. The first look, as it says, is the first time you're seeing your partner in dressed and ready for the wedding, right? The first touch is basically a moment that you just touch each other. You don't necessarily see each other, right? In some instances, what I have experienced with the first touch is that there is somebody that is highly spiritual in the family will come during that first touch and pray for the couple in that very quiet moment, right? But for me, I definitely recommend the first look as much as possible, because again, there are so many elements to the day that can change at the snap of a finger. You check the app, the weather app, and the day is bright and sunny.
Yes.
And then, a few hours later, it's torrential rain. So I always recommend the first look, if there's scope for it, capture it, because those are going to be the photos that will show you how you guys looked on that day. Because if it is that torrential rain come and you didn't have a first look.
You've lost a lot of time that we can't recover from.
Correct.
And let me also tell you this, because I be really preaching. I need to, my rates need to go up because I'm really preaching in these planning meetings,
Yeah.
Because this is the next thing. Like, you see, once you start to lose good light, you see that good light, and you see those bomb bridal portrait shots that they see on Instagram and on TikTok, and they want this and they don't understand that all of that is done at the first look.
Correct. So you have emphasized something that is very, very important, that a lot of people, brides in particular, do not understand the importance of light.
And the good light at that.
Because technology is great, but if it is that at the end of the day the place is dark and you cannot see anything, we can't add light to everywhere to give you those great shots. We can, give light to you, but at the same time we'd want to be able to capture the best light that shows you the most flattering, and most importantly, it shows off that gorgeous dress that you spent a lot of money on.
Not only that, but of course, sometimes when the sun, and I've learned this from a photo shoot that I did for myself, by the way, and I questioned the photographer. He assured me that everything was good, and it was in fact not good, because the sun was directly overhead, so it was dark.
It created shadows on your face.
Exactly, and then there was a lot of the sheen from the sun on my face as well.
A lot of reflections.
There you go. So like, this is why I highly recommend doing a 4 p.m. start time. So the first touch is usually at 2 or 3 o'clock,
right?
Which is
basically like that, going where the sun is kind of coming down, where you allow the sun to cool off, because it's at the hottest time of the day, right? So you do your first look in a shaded area, and then it allows you, the wedding planner, to get the bride or the groom back into their area to cool off, and to just
refresh,
retouch before the wedding starts at 4, and for them to just catch themselves.
Correct. So now that we have pretty much discussed the first look and the first touch, we just spoke about the first look. Walk us through what the first touch actually looks like, because of course there's only so much you can do at a first touch.
Right. Most people literally some people are just guided back to back to touch each other. Some is a situation where, they touch each other around a door or a wall. It's just a moment to just hold that your wife or your bride to be, just for you to connect, so to speak.
Okay. So 15 minutes, 10 minutes for a first touch versus what? 45 minutes for a first look?
No, absolutely not. 45 minutes is too much, Fran. No. 15
with
minutes.
With all the staging and the positions and...
half an hour. 15 minutes to half an hour. If it is that for us, once it is that we get on location, we scout quickly if it is on a location that we're not familiar with, and find that area where it is that we want to do that first look. So we know exactly where we are, and as soon as the bride and groom is ready, we know exactly, we position the groom, and then we bring out the bride. That can be done in 15 to 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. So we're about to wrap up, but there are like 3 questions that I have left for you, and I feel like they're equally important, and that is why I saved them for the last. So I kind of need, first of all, 5 tips for getting ready photos, because again, Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, everybody is seeing these amazing photos, but they don't understand that a lot of prep actually goes into getting those photos. So 5 tips for them to think about in order to, or 5 things that they need to either think about or do in order to get these great photos.
Okay. Let me see now. First of all, 1, identify a photographer that is flexible in giving what you
Child,
want.
can I just stick a pin right here, please? I know I said I'm wrapping up, but can I stick a pin right here?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to call names, but there are photographers, and let me look in my camera and see. There are photographers out there who are not flexible. So you see, if they bill you for 8 hours or 5 hours and we have rain or something happen and we've lost an hour and a half to for whatever reason, when your 8 hours are done, it is done. There is no flexibility in there. So even if I start to adjust the timeline to make sure that the important items such as the first dance and the cake cutting and even if I make those adjustments, once the 8 hours are done, they're done. So continue. I emphasize flexibility. Continue.
Right. A photographer that's flexible. I would also then say, most importantly, outside of finding a photographer, have conversations with the photographer. Keep the conversation going throughout the time, the period. If there are any adjustments you want to make, communicate that beforehand.
So 1 second. So when Fran says to go ahead and create the capture list for the photographer.
Right. I was just about to touch that.
Wait 1 second. When Fran said create the capture list and also to discuss with your partner before having that Zoom meeting with the photographer to discuss what it is that you want.
Right.
That is important.
Very important, which is my third item on the list. So you call it a capture list. We sometimes call it a mood board.
Okay.
What is important is that a lot of times people they have something in their head.
There you go.
Right? But they
Expectations.
Can't necessarily articulate it to the photographer. Go online, find a picture.
There you go.
Find a picture. This is exactly what I want. Share that with the photographer. Can you recreate this? And I don't think any professional photographer should have an issue with that. It's either one, you can recreate it, or you can create some new variation of it.
Exactly.
As long as it meets the customer's expectations.
So we're about 4, I think.
I think we're now at 4. I'll emphasize this over and over again. Communication.
I agree.
Communication.
Because we can't read minds yet.
Okay. Thank you. And I think for my last one would be just to have fun.
Yeah.
On the day.
Yeah.
Just to have fun.
Let the day flow how it's supposed to flow.
And be
Do not
confident
worry about
in your planner. That your planner got you. And which is why it's so important that you, outside of just picking Auntie Bob or Auntie Angie, to do your wedding because she can do a little thing.
Yes, and she do the birthday party, them nice. Right. Yes.
You need to speak to a professional planner in order to give you exactly what it is that you want. And somebody that has years of experience and, again, is flexible.
Yeah, flexibility and communication.
Yeah.
Next question. 2 things. List 2 things that couples can do without on wedding day. Because you and I, we've gone through weddings countless times. And there are some things that cannot be removed from the list, but there are a couple of items that can be. So what do you think 2 items that they can absolutely do without on wedding day?
Boy, that's a tough one. 2 things that a couple can do without on the wedding day. Rain.
Okay. Okay.
Rain and any bad news. And I say bad news can be anything whereas it could be a situation that if somebody has traveled to Jamaica for a destination wedding, if it is that some family member unfortunately may have had a death or anything like that, they don't need that at that moment.
Right.
Bad news. I think those might just be the 2 things, rain and bad news, because they're gonna be devastated for the day.
And I will actually add this to your list because we're covering photography and videography today. Uncle Bob and Auntie Patsy with the iPads.
That's why two is just like tip of the iceberg.
Listen, because they kill the important shots that they cannot be manipulated.
They cannot be removed.
Yeah.
You know, AI can do so much, but
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with Fran on that. If it is that you can also
Unplugged.
unplug to communicate to your guests that, hey, we have a professional team. Can you allow them to capture this moment for us and for you? Yeah.
I absolutely agree. And the last one is, of course, what do you enjoy most about weddings?
The love. The love. You know, just understanding and being there, I wouldn't say fly on the wall. Probably the bird in a tree, just observing the love, the connection that these two people are coming together, uniting. You know, in some situations, there are families that are bonding. It's just an amazing feeling, and just watching. I remember, I won't call the name, an artist. Dancehall artist in Jamaica getting married, and at his first look, I mean, this is big artist, you know. I see the man nervous, you know. I'm like, bro, you all right? It's just the love that him have for this woman, and for him to then during the ceremony stand and say how they met. It's just so heartwarming seeing that emotional vulnerability. It's a beautiful thing.
I absolutely agree. What is what is your favorite part of wedding day? You have to pick one.
I would probably say the walking down the aisle, and I'll say that because, you know, I too am married, and that walking down the aisle, that at that moment you know that, listen, 5 minutes ago it was me alone,
and you were
and it's
nervous.
now me and my wife.
My wife and I.
My wife and I.
On behalf of my wife and I.
You know what I mean? So I think it's that moment for me, because I have a personal connection with it. That walking down the aisle, me and my wife. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Andre.
And thank you for having me.
I know it was hard getting you on the coach.
Yeah.
But I thank you for joining me. And let us close out by having a drink. To, of course, many more weddings.
Many more weddings.
And, of course, capturing the love and telling all of the love stories to come.
Amen.
Salud.
Cheers.